Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I'm Miss Neha, and we are seeing the chapter Locomotion and Movement. Now, first, we'll see what is meant by locomotion and movement. Okay, and then we'll move to the further point. So, as I've seen, we are seeing the chapter Locomotion and Movement. And in this chapter, we are going to see a topic, or we are going to see one point, which is types of muscles in human body. So first we'll see the term locomotion movement and then we'll go to the types of muscles in human body. So let's understand the term movement first. So first of all, as you know, we humans have ability to show movement, right? Right now I'm moving my hands here. That is kind of movement only. Or I'm talking right now. While talking, I'm moving my jaws here. That is also kind of movement. That means I can say we humans have ability to show movement here. Then the next concept is the locomotion. Now humans also have ability to show locomotions. Now if you look at the term movement and locomotion, both the terms looks or they feels little bit similar, but these terms are not similar. These are different terms. The movement means moving your body part. As I've said, I'm moving my hands or I'm moving my jaws. These are my body parts. Whenever I move my body parts, it is known as movement. But the locomotion means changing location or changing place. That is the location. For example, let's take example of human beings. We human beings have legs, right? So with the help of legs, we can change our location. We can walk, we can go somewhere else, and we can change our location. We can change our position or place. That is nothing but the locomotion. Okay, so humans have ability to show locomotion. As we have seen, the humans have ability to show movement, and now we are seeing the humans have ability to show locomotion also. That means human can perform both the activities, and that is movement and locomotion. Let's talk about the plants here. In case of plants, they can show movement. Okay, movement means they can move their body parts. Okay, the plants can show their move their body parts. That means they can show movement. But what is about locomotion? Can they show locomotion? No, plants can't show locomotion. Why? Because they do not have any locomotory organ. Unlike human beings, humans have legs, and legs, with the help of legs, they can show locomotion, and the legs is their locomotory organ. But in case of plants, because they do not have any locomotory organ, they can't show locomotion. That means plant can show only one activity, and that is nothing but the movement. Okay, right now we have seen movement and locomotion. In case of plant, they can show only single activity, and that is movement, while the human beings can show both the activities, and that is movement and locomotion. Okay, so as of now we are clear about the concept movement and locomotion. Now, as we have seen, humans can show both activities, that is movement and locomotion. Now, in human beings, in order to show movement and locomotion, in their body they have specialized structures, and these structures are nothing but these muscles. Okay, so in human beings, in order to show locomotion and movement, they have specialized structure, and these structures are nothing but the muscles. So in human beings, total three types of muscles are there, and these three types are: first one skeletal muscle, second one visceral muscle, third one is the cardiac muscle. The first skeletal muscle, second visceral muscle, and the third one is the cardiac muscle. So there are total three types of muscles. The first we'll see why the names of muscles are given like that, and then we'll move to their detailed structure. So the first one, that is skeletal muscle. Now why the name is given as a skeletal muscle? It is because these skeletal muscles are attached to our skeleton. Okay, these muscles are attached to our skeleton. That's why they are known as skeletal muscle. Now, as we have known, our skeleton is made up of bones, right? So the muscles are attached to our bones. Look at the structure here. Here, this red color structure. This one is the skeletal muscle, and it is attached to these bones, right? These are the bones. So these muscles are attached to the bone here, or they are attached to our skeleton. That's why they are known as skeletal muscle. Then the second type of muscle is the visceral muscle. Now, why the name is given as visceral muscle? It is because these muscles are present in our visceral organs, or I will say simply internal organs. These are present in our internal organs or in the visceral organ. That's why these are known as visceral muscles. Now, what are internal organs? What are the visceral organs? Now, within our body, different organs are there. Like we have pancreas, we have lungs, there is the abdomen, then there is this uterus. These all are our visceral organs. And within the visceral organs, some muscles are present, and such a muscles are known as visceral muscle. So that is the our second muscle, that is visceral muscle. Then the third type of muscle is the cardiac muscle. Now this type of muscle is exclusively present in heart. Okay, these muscles are present only in the heart. That's why these muscles are known as cardiac muscles. Okay, now we'll go back to previous slide. Okay, so we have seen all three types of muscle. First one, skeletal muscle, second, visceral muscle, and third is the cardiac muscle. Why the skeletal muscle name is given? It is because these muscles are attached to our skeleton. That's why the name is skeletal muscle. Then the second type, that is visceral muscle. These are known as visceral muscle because these muscles are present in our visceral organs. And then third one, that is cardiac muscle. Now this type of muscle are exclusively present in heart. That's why it is known as cardiac muscle. Now we have seen why the names of muscles are given like this. Now we will see the detailed structure of this muscle, and we will start with the first one, that is skeletal muscle. Now we'll go to the skeletal muscle, the structure of skeletal muscle. Now look at this middle diagram now. Okay, this one is the skeletal muscle. Now, as we have known, the skeletal muscle, these are part of our body. These are part of our human body. That means obviously these muscles are made up of cells, right? So the skeletal muscles are also made up of cells, and these cells are known as skeletal muscle cells. Okay, the skeletal muscle are made up of cells, and those cells are known as skeletal muscle cells. Now we are going to see different characteristic of the skeletal muscle cell. Let's start with the first one. That means the shape of the cell. Look at the cell here. Within this structure, total 4 cells are there. This one is the first cell, this is second cell, this is third cell, and this one is the fourth skeletal muscle cell. Now, what is the shape of these muscle cells? The shape of the muscle cell is cylindrical. So, the skeletal muscle cells are cylindrical in shape. Look at the structure. Look at the first cell here. You can see in the structure also, these cells are long cylindrical in shape, right? So, the skeletal muscle cells are cylindrical in shape. Then, the second characteristic, the skeletal muscle cells are unbranched. Unbranched means they do not have any branching. And look at the structure here. All the 4 cells here, this one, this one, this one, and this one. All 4 cells are plain, simple, flat cells are there. These cells do not have any branching. That's why the skeletal muscle cells are unbranched. Okay, so we have seen 2 points. Skeletal muscle cells are cylindrical in shape, and the skeletal muscle cells are unbranched. Then the next one, the skeletal muscle cells are multinucleated. Skeletal muscle cells are multinucleated. Multi means many, and the nucleated means nucleus. Okay, the skeletal muscle cells are multinucleated, means they have many nucleuses. How they have many nucleuses? Look at the first cell here. Within the first cell, these bluish color structures are there. This one, or this one, right? So, one second. Okay. Look at the first cell here. Within this cell, total 3 oval blue colored structures are there, right? So these structures are nothing but the nucleuses. Usually within the cell a single nucleus is present, but look at the cell here. Total 3 nucleus are present. Means here more than one nucleus or many nucleuses are present. That's why the skeletal muscle cells are multinucleated. Multinucleated means they have many nucleuses. Then the next and very important point. Look at the structure here. Within the structure you can see some bands are there. Here. This one is the band here. Okay, this one band here. Or here is also some bands are there. Right? Here some bands are dark in color, while some bands are light in color. Here is this dark band, right? And here is this light band. Okay, so within the skeletal muscle cell, some bands are present. Some bands are dark color while some bands are light color. Look at the structure properly. Here the light and dark color bands are alternatively placed. Right? There is first dark band, then later there is light, then dark, there is the light. So the dark and light color bands are alternatively placed here. Okay? And these bands here are known as striations. Okay, so the skeletal muscle cells have striations. That's why skeletal muscle cells are also known as striated muscles. This is very important point. On the skeletal muscle cell, alternate dark and light colored bands are present, and these bands are known as striations. And just because skeletal muscle cell have striations, it is known as striated muscle. Okay, so another name for skeletal muscle is striated muscle. Then the next point, what is location of the skeletal muscle? As we have seen previously only, the skeletal muscle cells are attached to skeleton, right? That's why their name is skeletal muscles. Okay, so these muscles are attached to our skeleton. That's why they are known as skeletal muscle. Now, how these are attached to our bones or how these are attached to our skeleton? Look at the structure here. This red color structure, this one, this is the muscle, right? And this muscle is attached to this bone. Okay, but this muscle is not attached to the bone directly. It is attached with the help of this middle structure, and this middle structure is known as tendon. Okay, so the skeletal muscles are attached to bones. Okay, the skeletal muscles are attached to these bones with the help of middle structure, and this middle structure is known as tendons. Okay, so skeletal muscle cells are attached to our skeleton. Their location is they are attached to our skeleton, but they are not directly attached. They are attached with the help of one middle structure which is known as tendons. So that is the location of skeletal muscle cells. Then what is function of the skeletal muscle? The function of skeletal muscle is they control or they regulate voluntary actions. Okay, the function is they control or they regulate voluntary actions. Now what is mean by voluntary actions? The voluntary action means the action which you can perform according to your will. The action you can control according to your will. Okay, or I will say the action which you can control. Such actions are known as voluntary action. Let's take an example of an action like movement of hands. Now whenever I move my hands according to my will, right? I have my control on my hands. I can control when to start my movement or when to stop the movement of my hands, right? Such actions are known as voluntary actions, the actions which you perform according to your will. Okay, so such actions are known as voluntary actions, and such voluntary actions are controlled by the skeletal muscle cells. Okay, so that was the skeletal muscle. We have seen different characteristic of the skeletal muscle cell. The first one was the skeletal muscle cell is cylindrical in shape. Then second was it is unbranched. Third was it is multinucleated, means it have many nucleuses. Fourth one, it have alternate dark and light color bands which are known as striations. That's why the skeletal muscle is also known as striated muscle. And the next one is the location. The skeletal muscles are attached to our skeleton with the help of tendons. And the last was the function of skeletal muscle. And the function is skeletal muscle cells or skeletal muscle control voluntary activities. And voluntary activities means the activities which you can perform according to your will. Okay, the activities you can control when to start or when to stop the activity. Such activities are known as voluntary activity or voluntary actions. For example, the movement of my hands or movement of my jaw or movement of my legs, it is voluntary activity. Such a voluntary activities are controlled by skeletal muscle. So that was all about skeletal muscle. Then the second type of muscle is visceral muscle. Okay, second type of muscle is this visceral muscle. Now we have seen why it is known as visceral muscle. It is because these muscles are present in our visceral organ. That's why it is known as visceral muscle. Now the another name for visceral muscle is also the smooth muscle. Look at the third diagram here. Okay, the another name for visceral muscle is smooth muscle. Now, why it is known as smooth muscle, that we'll see later. Now, these smooth muscles are also made up of many cells, and these cells are smooth muscle cells or visceral muscle cells. Now, the shape of visceral muscle cell is spindle shaped. Okay, now what is meant by spindle shaped? So whenever the cells are tapering at both the end, or I will say simplify, I will simplify it. Whenever the cells are pointed at both the end, such a shape is known as spindle shape. Look at the structure. Look at this cell. This cell. Okay. Now this cell is pointed at both the end. Look at this end. It is pointed, and this end. It is pointed here. Right. So whenever the cells are pointed at both the end or cells are tapering at both the end, such as cells are known as spindle shaped cells, and the cells of smooth muscle are spindle shaped. Then the second characteristic, the smooth muscle cells are unbranched, means there is no branching. Look at the structure here. You can see in the structure also there is only single cells separately are present. There are no any branching. So the visceral muscle cells are unbranched. Then the next characteristic, the visceral muscle cells, these are uninucleated. Now this one is the different from skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle cells were multinucleated. They were having many nucleuses. Now the smooth muscle cell have only single nucleus. Look at this, right? Only single nucleus is there. Here also, look at this cell also, only single nucleus is there. Look at this cell, only single nucleus is there. This one also, only single nucleus is there, right? So the visceral muscle cells are uninucleated. Uni means single and nucleated means nucleus. So the visceral muscle cells are having single nucleus. That's why these are uninucleated. Then the next characteristic, visceral muscle cells do not have alternate dark and light color bands. Look in the structure here. There are no alternate dark and light color bands. Means on the visceral muscle cell there is no striations, right? So just because these visceral muscle cell do not have any striation or they do not have any alternate dark and light color bands, these are known as smooth muscle cell. Okay, why visceral muscle are known as smooth muscle? It is because they do not have striation. That's why they are also known as smooth muscle. Then the location of smooth muscle, where it is located, and we have seen the visceral muscles are present in our visceral organs, right? So the location is they are present in our internal organ or they are present in our visceral organ. Now, what is their function? The function of smooth muscle or visceral muscle is they control involuntary action. Their function is exactly opposite to the skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle were controlling voluntary action. Voluntary actions means the action which you can perform according to your will or the action which you can control. Such actions are voluntary action and such actions were controlled by skeletal muscle. But the smooth muscle control involuntary actions, means the action which you can't perform according to your will or the action on which you do not have any control. Such actions are known as involuntary actions. Okay, now we have seen the location of smooth muscle. These are present in our internal organ. Let's take an example of internal organ. For example, stomach. Let's take example of stomach or intestine. Within the stomach and intestine, digestion of food takes place. When the food is getting digested, our stomach or our intestine shows some movements, and such a movement you can't control, right? You don't move your stomach, or you move your intestine according to your will. These activities are happening automatically, right? So such a activities which you can't control according to your will, or which you can't control, such activities are known as involuntary activities or involuntary actions. Such involuntary actions are controlled by this smooth muscle or controlled by the visceral muscle. Okay, so we have seen the second type of muscle, that is the visceral muscle or smooth muscle. First, the cell's shape of the cell is, they are spindle shaped. Then the cells are unbranched, they do not have any branching. Then they are uninucleated, means they have only single nucleus there. Then they do not have any dark or light color bands. That's why they are known as smooth muscles. Then their location, they are located in our visceral organ. Okay, that's why the name is visceral muscle. And their function is they control involuntary activities like the movement of our stomach or movement of our intestine. Such involuntary activities are controlled by the smooth muscles. So that was our second type of muscle, that is smooth muscle or visceral muscle. Now the third type of muscle is the cardiac muscle. Now we have seen why it is known as cardiac muscle. It is because the cardiac muscle, these muscles are present exclusively in the heart, right? These are present only in the heart. That's why they are known as cardiac muscle. Now let's see what is the structure of cardiac muscle. Okay, look at the first diagram. This one is the cardiac muscle. Okay, this one is the cardiac muscle. Now cardiac muscle, it is made up of cardiac muscle cells, and the shape of the cell is cylindrical, exactly like the skeletal muscle cell. Okay, just look at the structure here. These cells are cylindrical, right? These are long tubular cylindrical shaped cells. Okay, then the next point, these cells are branched, means within the cells branching is present. Look at the second cell here, this one. This cell has been divided into two branches, this one and this one. Means the cardiac muscle cells show branching. Okay, so the cardiac muscle cells are branched. Then the third point, the cardiac muscle cells, these are uninucleated. Means within the cardiac muscle cell only single nucleus is present. Look at the first cell, here only single nucleus is there. Look at the second cell, only single nucleus. Within third cell, only single nucleus is there, right? So within the cardiac muscle cell, only single nucleus is present. That's why it is known as uninucleated muscle cell. Then within the cardiac muscle cell, alternate dark and light color bands are present, exactly like the skeletal muscle cell. They also have alternate dark and light color bands, means cardiac muscle cells have striations. Okay, then what is their location? As we have seen, the cardiac muscles are present exclusively in the heart. Okay, so the location of cardiac muscle is, they are present in heart. Then what is the function of cardiac muscle? So as we have known, the location of cardiac muscle is, they are present in our heart. Okay, so their function is also related to heart. So as you know, the function of our heart is to pump blood, right? Whenever heart undergoes contraction, blood pours out. Whenever heart undergoes relaxation, blood pours in. Okay, so our heart is constantly undergoing contraction and relaxation. This contraction and relaxation of heart is carried out by the cardiac muscle. Okay, so the function of cardiac muscle is, they bring about contraction and relaxation of heart. Okay, so these are three different types of muscle. The first type was this skeletal muscle, this one skeletal muscle. Second was this smooth muscle, or I will say visceral muscle, and the third was this cardiac muscle. We'll just take a quick recap and then we'll see further. Now, the first we have seen the skeletal muscle. Now, we have seen the structure of skeletal muscle cell. The skeletal muscle cells are cylindrical. First point was they are cylindrical. Second was these cells are unbranched. Then third was these are multinucleated. They have many nucleus. That's why multinucleated. Then next important and very important point, that is the skeletal muscle cell have alternate dark and light colored bands. Okay, these are dark bands, these are light bands. So they have alternate dark and light colored bands, and these bands are known as striations. That's why the skeletal muscle are also known as striated muscle. Now on the skeletal muscle, these bands are present. Like this one is the dark, this is the light. Here the dark band is known as I band, while the light band is known as I band. Okay, dark is known as A band and the light band is known as I band. And then we've seen the location. Location is they are attached to our skeleton, or I will say they are attached to our bones. Then it's function. The function of skeletal muscle is they control or they regulate voluntary actions, means the action which you can perform according to your will. So that was our skeletal muscle. The next we've seen the visceral muscle or smooth muscle. So the shape of visceral muscle or smooth muscle cell is they are spindle shaped. Why spindle shaped? Because the cells are tapering at both the ends. Okay, the cells are pointed at both the ends. That's why spindle shaped. Then the cells are unbranched, they do not have any branching. Then the cells are uninucleated, they have only single nucleus, that's why uninucleated. Then they do not have any bands, okay, they do not have any striations, that's why they are also known as smooth muscle. Then its location, these smooth muscle or visceral muscle are present in our visceral or internal organs. And then we have seen its function. The function of smooth muscle or visceral muscle is they control involuntary actions, means the action which you can't perform according to your will. Such actions are known as involuntary actions. And then the last type of muscle is the cardiac muscle. These cardiac muscle cells are cylindrical in shape like skeletal muscle. Then these are branched. This one is the important difference. These are branched. Okay. Look at this cell here. This cell is divided into two branches. Okay. So the cardiac muscle cells are branched. Then these cells are uninucleated. They have only single nucleus. Means these are uninucleated. And then they also have alternate dark and light color bands like the skeletal muscle. And then last the location and their function. Location is they are present in heart, and the function is they control the contraction and relaxation of our heart. So that was about our different types of muscles. I hope you liked my lecture. If you liked our lecture, please like, share and subscribe to Empower Education. Thank you.